Hello, I'm Justin. This is Kellan, and today we are joined by special guest Pete Halupka. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man. So for background, you and I met in February because I decided to spend my free time getting on an airplane and flying to Birmingham.
As one does.
We have a mutual connection in Austin Sensman. He and I used to work together, and you're now involved with Birmingham AI, which you started, and you were running a breakout session on the topic of AI and sales, and we hit it off, and we've been chatting ever since, and now we're thrilled to have you here. Pete, why don't you just give everyone a dose of who you are, what you do, and we'll get into it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to be here, you two. My name's Pete. My background, and I suppose why I'm here is I do lead a breakout group at Birmingham AI. It's always unique trying to explain Birmingham AI to people because it's really has such a momentum. Maybe, Justin, that's even why I would assume that's why you flew down.
Mm-hmm.
It's, there's about 250 plus people in each breakout monthly in the general meetup. So much so that Austin convinced me to lead a sales breakout group for, of course, just to focus on sales exclusively. So We have anywhere from 50 to 100 people in that meeting a month. So that's been very positive. And beyond that, I currently work at Insights AI. So super excited about being at the intersection of AI and renewable energy. And previous to that, I really cut my teeth in understanding systems, understanding company ownership and entrepreneurship, and the CPG space. So consumer packaged goods. I was actually in the beverage space for many years. Started a company with my wife, scaled that beverage company to a southeastern footprint across numerous Whole Foods, and kind of played the CPG game. Learned a lot of lessons doing that. And something my wife and I talk about a lot, who I co-owned the business with and co-ran the business with, was what would it look like to run that business now with AI?
Mm-hmm.
Would we spend 5 hours on a slideshow? So
maybe, yeah, probably not. But all right. Put a pin in that thread. I think that's fascinating.
Well, after CPG, I transitioned into the renewables industry. So I've been there for coming up on 3 years now.
Okay.
And very excited to be at Insights AI. Just started there in the spring. And like I said, that was really where I wanted to end up, was, kind of the ongoing question of how does AI, I started in renewables to combat climate change and have this really exciting green energy that's the fastest and cheapest energy to hit the grid. And it's interesting because there's been a big transition where, we're facilitating a lot of hyperscaler growth in data centers now. So there's a very fresh conversation and fresh dialogue around, how we're powering AI. That's a huge majority of the work, and a big question of if the grid can take on that demand and power them.
Yeah. What an interesting trifecta.
Just spin up a coal power plant next to one. There you go. You're good.
Yeah, I last week, it wasn't even an official Amazon announcement, but it's interesting because Amazon announced an 8 gigawatt off-grid natural gas plant in Texas that's specifically for a data center for Amazon. So
that's what I was referencing. I was just I was placeholdering coal just for hyperbolic effect.
There's definitely the same effect, and I think it's interesting to approach it. I mean, we're all using these technologies, and I think the question of how we scale them and how we power them is at the least an exciting dialogue to be a part of, but something I think about a lot.
Yeah, man. Pete, what struck me when I attended your breakout session is, you were very kind of just honest about your own personal journey and like where you were with AI. And you could tell the vibe in that room was just like, we're just all people that are in sales or sales adjacent roles. And we're all just trying to figure this out together. Right. And I thought that was really a welcoming environment to be in, and to hear people that hadn't really got past opening the chat screen yet, and like, oh, what different simple use cases can we get into? So I think that's really cool. Tell us a little bit about kind of your journey getting into AI, because you mentioned you ran a business, you were an entrepreneur before AI, and now it's like, how did it sneak up on you, and what's been that road since, kind of to where you started and where you are today?
Yeah. So, it reminds me. I remember when Gmail, it was they dropped a little feature where you're writing the email and it shows you the predictively what you're going to type next, and you can press the arrow and it just automatically fills the email out. I used to be the guy that when that happened, it was like too much. It felt like too much to me. I don't remember how many years ago that is at this rate, but I think I still bring that level of criticality about how I use AI, how AI is being built, not only from just like a functionality standpoint, but also I think what's really come of not being an AI stan is that, especially in the group at Birmingham AI, opening up the floor, like, hey, we can have varying opinions in here and perspectives and approaches to AI, right? And I think that's how you build the best opinion about this technology. And that's something that Austin always drove home at Birmingham AI, was at least have an opinion here. It can be whatever you see fit, but to really build a perspective, I think has allowed me to, maybe a differing perspective than some, has allowed me to consider my own philosophy and how I approach the technology from, hey, where do I want to use my hands? Where do I want to use my brain? Where do I want to use AI?
Right.
What is this world going to look like? I think that's something I've really tried to hold inside of myself is I don't have many answers about this technology. I don't have any answers about this technology. Most of us really don't. So to really have a curiosity mindset about where everything's going.
Yeah. Someone commented on a LinkedIn post I had this morning, and they asked me, how do you determine the line between where a human should be involved and where an AI should be involved? And I was like, well, hello, loaded question of the day. It depends my way through this one, but I think, we're all wrestling with this too, like you said, in our own ways, because there is no widely accepted established playbook for that topic. And so I think each individual person kind of finds their own footing. All three of us, if we were to compare detailed notes in how we use AI, we would have three different sets of details. There'd be maybe lots of overlap in different places, but it'd be different. The work you're in, is there anything, Pete, where you mentioned you kind of that feeling with Gmail autocomplete of like, oh, this is a little too much. I don't need this. Like where you felt like, hey, AI is kind of encroaching on my territory here, but later you opened up to it out of curiosity.
Yeah, it's a great question. So that was many, many years ago. I can't even remember when that dropped, but I just have these examples in my head of
it's a good.
I don't know. I live in Birmingham, Alabama. I think that's clear at this rate, but there was a banner drop on a highway in my town, and it was a banner drop that said AI is for dummies. And
like an overpass in the highway.
On an overpass. And as much of a kind of oversimplification that statement was, it actually sent me into a philosophical state for over 24 hours. And ultimately, I asked myself, I was like, am I dumb?
Right.
Are they dumb? And also, what is AI? Right. What do they mean by AI? And that's kind of the mindset I'm trying to illustrate and uphold, and at least the group I lead is at Birmingham AI, and even in my daily work at Insights is remaining very curious about this technology. And to be clear, I use it actively. I build tools. I use it daily. It's open right behind me here. And I think that transition just turned into a curiosity of I should join this group that's happening in our city. And I think that momentum there really did help me kind of see the kind of momentum or wave that was happening. And additionally, though, I have a very strong mindset for how these tools help organizations function across different departments, or when I step into a new sales department, seeing how AI can streamline, data hygiene or communication with clients, or conversely, how do we use this tool to improve our communication with clients, right? So improve the quality of outbound, right? So conversely, as in you spend less time on X, so you can spend more time on personalized outreach. So using the tools over time, using it to edit an email. Then last year I was like, oh my gosh, Claude Code. And then, oh my gosh, you have that first experience where you build a tool, you build an app. That was a big game changer for me. And now we're here. How do you use it to build organizations? How do you use it to drive your own sales pipeline? How do you use it to drive the renewable energy transition? These are some big questions that I think that AI is asking and that I'm asking AI to.
You mentioned the thrill of like building your first app. And I think there's like these stages I watch people go through. It's like when you leave chat and you come into something like Claude Code or Cowork or Code, like a harness that can go do stuff for you. And people kind of have this, glorious cosmic powers type moment. And then, then they're like, I can like build tools. Like, what was the first thing you built for yourself?
I think that this is actually a really small one, which I think is super. I'm going to give you two. The first one is really silly, but also just so effective. I think the smaller instances are sometimes the most powerful. I don't know if you all find that, but
we named ourselves Tiny Bottle, dude. Like,
Nice. Nice. Yeah, exactly. So if I'm to carry that forward, like my Tiny Bottle example, I suppose, is like a year ago, how Claude Code worked with HubSpot was really clunky. And now it's highly effective. And to be able to connect enrichment via MCP and do the prospecting in Claude as well, and then have that automatically upload to a segment or list in HubSpot straight out of Claude is a very powerful tool. That was a watershed moment for me.
And what that like, just to pull on that, like for you, was that like, oh, thank God I don't have to like live in HubSpot and do all this tedious stuff anymore? Was it one of those unlocks? Like I spend less time on X, so I can spend more time on Y. Is that kind of the flavor there?
I think it's both. I think it is both. I mean, I love HubSpot. I am a RevOps certified in HubSpot, and consider myself a relatively advanced user, obviously with more to learn all the time, but to save the time, really HubSpot's awesome, but the CSV upload gave me like actually tangible anxiety. You got to align all of the properties and stuff. And if you mess that up, all of a sudden you're beholden to like, 200, 500 duplicates, and to just have perfect, flawless uploads every time is really powerful. And the second one is at my last job. It's kind of like an overlap between my last job and this one. This application I created. I wanted to help my BDR team train on cold calls.
Okay.
And I created an AI voice agent in 11 labs that functioned across like our varying verticals. Their ICP, like 4 different ideal customer profiles, and built out their voice so that the BDR, or in this instance, in my new gig, me, can actually click call and have a client conversation, cold call training. And that was cool. And then one of those light bulb moments, I was like, oh, I need a coach in the middle of it. So you can actually say, help me. And it'll train you through what you're missing. And that went from wanting to train my team of sales reps to I want to onboard faster at this job. So that was a really cool application. Honestly, that's still even just locally hosted. It's not even it's not something I'm sharing with the team yet, but it was something that I plan on being able to share with my current company just as a tool, which I think is like another value we can bring to companies when you really have, the knowledge to make these tools.
That's really cool.
Very much so. I just, I remember early in my career when I had my first kind of office job, it was in customer service. And you would do a ton, like a metric ton of role playing, right? And you probably have similar experience maybe in your sales career. And that's what a cool idea. Because it's just like when you say the words out loud or you hear the objection and you have to on live tap dance on the spot and know what you would say. Like it's just, there's something that happens neurologically, I think, when you have to say it versus just think about it. So
absolutely.
Kudos, man.
I mean, it's also like I whatever, I would be calling on very serious, very high level clients, like calling into a C-suite or a company that, you don't have a lot of leverage, or excuse me, you don't have a lot of like latitude for messing up. So you only have so much of that capital. You already have a 5 to 10% connect rate. If that would be good, right?
Right.
You make 20 calls, you connect with 1 or 2 people and have a conversation. That would be solid. So you're better at math than me, probably. You can do that math, but we understand that, when you get that connect, it needs to be done well. And I think that happens with a lot of pre-call research. If we want to get nerdy about personalization and, how we connect with people and how I think AI can move us towards human relationships in sales rather than away from them.
Yeah.
I think that's a conscious decision that you can make in your outreach quality, but to have AI move us towards being able to spend more time calling more people with a higher quality of connection, authenticity, and personalization. And I think Toyota is an incredible use case because they already did this with robotics, right? So they have this existing, 80 plus year old, 80 times moving quick is almost, I guess, 80, 90-year-old philosophy, post-war kind of production strategy on how they're going to manufacture these cars in a really effective and efficient manner because of constraints in their economy, as well as just smart resource management. And I think that it'll be really cool to see how companies start to. I'm curious if y'all already have feedback, but something like Jidoka at Toyota. So that's how they were approaching robotics. So it's the automation part, but it's got the human touch, right? They never thought robotics were going to replace humans, and actually, approached it more of that's actually going to be the more expensive and less flexible way to approach efficiency on a line, because the robots, so understanding where the robots and the humans, or in this instance, where the AI and the human can best interface from just a holistic perspective. And I think to not be, and I think that's the kind of perspective I'm trying to hold in the midst of a lot of hype, a lot of releases, a lot of new functionality is, where are their tiny bottles? How do we deploy this? You said this well, Kellan. I just think what I took away is kind of an objectivity about where these tools can most functionally plug in.
Right. I mean, you plug in us with the tiny bottle. Love it.
Yeah.
No, I think the Toyota example is really good adjacent as far as their lean process goes. About what I was kind of saying about overly automating kind of agents or giving too much autonomy to them.
Right.
Is that the quality gate becomes at the end.
Yeah.
And just like Toyota, their quality is at every gate. Their quality checks. And those generally speaking are human quality gates. So that they're catching errors on the line instead of after it.
Right.
So it's actually a really good metaphor. I don't know what the right word is.
Analogy.
There
Are
it is.
You sure, Justin?
I am not sure.
Oh God.
I'm not at all either.
I know someone who would be very sure, but phone a friend.
So how do y'all build, when you step into an organization, how do you poke and prod at existing philosophies versus helping organizations build out their philosophy?
You want me to go first, Kellan? You've been thinking about this all day.
Well, I know, but I think there's two things happening at the same time, which is there might be three. The first really quick one is that some AI policies were written by AI. And so they're not very good, and they didn't have a lot of human touch and reality built into them. The other two get a little more muddy, they're decent policies, and we just need to kind of help them through kind of the things that maybe they haven't considered yet. And so it's really just kind of refinement of a policy that's almost there, or not just policy, but a strategy, which generally speaking doesn't lean as heavy on the people doing the work as much as it should. It's much more only leadership or like IT as the focal point, or like the technology, and very little about like the people and process and how it like will functionally work.
Right.
And how it impacts them like on so many planes. And then the last one is like, they are just so simply overwhelmed that they have done nothing. And so there is, and it's not like it, like it's like a fight or flight kind of thing. And I do not like begrudge it. Especially since like now they're talking to us. So like that they've fought that flight and now they're fighting a little bit, but it's like about like just, they're being a little bit more open about like, okay, this is here. We're going to have to do something about it. We don't want to overbuild it or overdo it. We want it to work for people, not against them, and blah, blah, blah. And we're kind of going it with that lens. But there's no single journey, just like you said at the beginning. So like, we really have to take people with where they're at and then kind of like attack it from that lens, starting at the top, but understanding that the work gets done at the bottom and the middle.
I mean, we could take the Toyota, Nalafor,
forward. There it is. I was wondering. I couldn't find it. I knew it was there.
It's a metallurgy.
Metallurgy. Okay.
Forward, and like, one of the most interesting parts, and I got interested in lean manufacturing because I used to work in light manufacturing in food and beverage, and one of the interesting things about the Toyota manufacturing principles is that any person can stop the line, right? I think that's important. To your point, Kellan, to reinforce that. But the question is, how do you build that culture of AI in an organization? Justin, you talk about trust. It's essential to getting folks to I guess simply put, like, just buy in, right? How do you get people to care to stop the line?
It's
proverbially.
Yeah, it's AI, I think, will be the most amazing technology of our lifetimes, and also the most challenging implementation of our lifetimes. I believe those two things. And I think, this is maybe a bit cliche. I think at the top level, you don't, this is our opinion, I think, in a tiny bottle, you don't show up to a company and say, here's your AI strategy. Their AI strategy is something you discover. And what I mean by that is, like, it's probably already there, emphasized in the things they're trying to do, whether it's, growth or stability or whatever it is, the problems they're already trying to solve. And our goal with strategies is to answer a simple question, like, how does AI most effectively plug into all of these situations? Right? Because I think what leaders are struggling with, and you hear more success stories now than we did 2 years ago, is the hammer and the nail problem. Like, I'm going to deploy AI over here and it's going to do this and do this. So it's sort of disconnected from practical implementation realities. So I think you really got to start there. But I think at the bottom level, building trust with people, the way we start that conversation is probably similar to some of your own stories. Like, how do we actually enable these people to start using the things they already have effectively?
Right. So does that happen with an audit of some kind?
So we do some surveys and, some data collection, things like that. We try to get a read on, and because it's amazing what people will tell you in a survey or something they know is not going to be, put out there on blast. It's like, where are they really at on AI? Because this.
I use granola and I haven't told anyone.
Yeah, right. It's like, I'm terrified, or, I'm really excited, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then also sort of an honest assessment. A question I love to ask is, like, realistically, how much room do you have right now for things like strategic initiatives to change the way you work? Because I think people on the job, I think Kellan and I, and others that are doing businesses similar to ours, we kind of spend all day, every day drinking from the fire hose on this stuff. And if you're in charge of some order management team, you show up to work every day and you're like trying to do that job function, right? And so you're not keeping up. So I think, how do you connect people to the tools as cleanly as possible, so that they can feel the right sense of ownership? And I think the best forms of leadership are to cast, great vision and direction. And that's one of the things we try to do in the strategy level. Is here's kind of the short list of main areas we think you would want to craft a strategy around AI. These places in your business, right? So then it's like, okay, I kind of see that, but I'm part of the plan. That's the top of the mountain, but I'm involved in which trails and roads we take up. I just think, is that guaranteed positive outcome in all cases? Of course not. But I just think you're increasing your odds of success in a dramatic fashion. I think with roles like yours and sales or sales adjacent roles, this has been said for decades, how relationships and trust are the currency that success is built on. And so how do you, I'm curious, how your thoughts on how do you preserve trust and authenticity when AI is showing up in your work, when what really matters is you connecting with your customers, your clients, prospects in a way that, because there's all the concern about AI slop, and it's like, hey, don't send me your BDR bots. I don't want nothing to do with those. What's your philosophy been like in the trust and authenticity lane in sales?
Get out from behind the computer. It can be my colleague Sarah and I we're the leading the sales team at Insights, and we're just brainstorming seemingly simple, even kind of silly, or maybe the better word is just fun solutions. Like we're just starting a gardening club, and for all of just for the solar industry, and or instead of creative solutions, like everyone loves a good happy hour at a conference, but like what if we do a birding tour, right? What are just interesting ways to stand out, but also kind of like a counterbalance to receiving another email in your inbox if I get in the inbox or get a phone call in the first place, right? So I think that I try and see, I'm definitely half glass full on no better time to handwrite a letter to a client, and no better time to understand someone likes soccer or loves Messi and send them a scarf. With no weird sales strings attached. Just like, I know you like this, was thinking about, saw this scarf at a Nashville soccer club game, and when they were playing Inter Miami, and wanted to share. So I think that AI presents incredible opportunities in that kind of arena, and it creates incredible opportunities for me to not mess up HubSpot hygiene by being able to upload CSVs directly through Claude. So I think that's the kind of dynamic I'm playing with right now. But imagine looking back on this conversation in 5 years, right? It's kind of incredible to consider. But I think that's where the philosophy and like being able to have a mindset or principles around how you use the technology allows you to be allows you to be not just reactive, but to kind of hold your own perspective on a technology as it advances. And despite what I think about AI, and I tell Birmingham AI groups this all the time, I'm probably one of the more skeptical people in the room. But I think that skepticism and that criticality and that kind of mindset about, the goods and the bads of this technology is exactly the reason to know as much as possible about it and deploy it in ways that are beneficial to you, beneficial to those around you. In the sales perspective, bringing your clients value, in the operational perspective, how do we streamline friction points in the sales department, and so on.
Right. And the kind of the other intersection for you here is, there's these two interesting stories happening with AI. I think at the highest level narratives, you consume as much news as I do and read all these reports. You got one story of just activity related to AI skyrocketing, right? That's one narrative, and there's lots of subthreads there. And then there's this other narrative of like general public sentiment towards AI worsening in different surveys and evaluations.
Right.
The environment is one of them. The data center conversation is one of them. So, you're in renewables, and solar. You mentioned at the top of our conversation how that's, the hyperscaling of those things is creating business opportunity for you. So what do you have not a stance, but just sort of what's your perspective on that part of this conversation and, where things are headed on that side?
I think it's really important that we consider, not if we have data centers, despite my support of people voicing their opinions about data centers. I think that it's important to consider, and something I'm trying to learn more about is how are these data centers designed and why are they designed the way they are? And I think there's a lot of opportunity in three distinct sections. One, how the grid is managed, right? The world's largest machine, the grid here in the US. And two, exactly how are we going to make sure that these assets on both solar and battery and otherwise, but just from my purview, the solar and battery applications for utility scale applications, right? These are going to be larger rooftop assets. I say when you fly over a desert and you see the solar in that kind of scale, that's kind of the room I play in, right? That's the room I'm in. So these are assets that are actively powering cities. These batteries are keeping power on at night. And how are we going to strategize these assets performing as efficiently as possible, right? Just like the grid itself. How much power are we losing in the grid design, while also these new assets that we're putting on the grid, right? So thirdly, I'd say that, big questions for me, I've got my curiosity cap on, really trying to always engage in dialogue around like, why are these data centers performing the way they are? Why are they being built the way they are? And also additionally, maybe this is a fourth year, where are these models going to go in terms of efficiency? Right? So I think there's a lot of the optimist in me thinks that, where we are with data center design as well as large language model consumption, even though I've seen some studies with conflicting that maybe suggest I'm totally wrong here, is that, we're in the state of, their Model T, and I'm really aspiring to see a Prius as soon as possible, right? How, the kind of leaps and bounds that we could make in the efficiency across how our energy is not only used and consumed at something like a data center, but also how it's produced and managed from the grid or, in my case, a solar or battery asset.
So this sounds like almost like a classic dumbbell problem. So like on one side is kind of where you mentioned a lot of curiosity in your own work is how do we keep the grid efficient? How do we improve the grid? How do we improve the manner in which we generate and store and transfer power, right? Because AI needs data centers demand a lot of power to be on and to run and computers to compute. And then there's the the actual hardware side of AI. I think most major players, I'm fairly OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, and NVIDIA, all are in their own pursuit of some proprietary new chip technology. Because I think they recognize this is almost an imperative for the future of AI is to have some breakthroughs on that side of the coin. So I see, you hear about that activity on both sides, and I just think that it's an inevitability that we are going to build data centers. So I like that. Honestly, Pete, this is the first time I've heard somebody say like, let's not talk about should or shouldn't we. It is when this happens, what can we do to increase the chances that it's a good thing?
Right, like it's a design issue, or it's a question of design, right? Or it's a I don't want to oversimplify that because then I'm like, well, we can talk about the kind of how solar and battery assets are connected to the grid, what that process looks like. I remember I came from my last job was actually in solar panel recycling. So I became very aware that 14% of the above ground silver in the world is inside of a solar panel, right? So this critical minerals dialogue was something I became very knowledgeable in because it's the exact kind of question you're bringing up, Justin. It's like, this is an inevitability. Where are the minerals? And maybe we should be smarter about, urban mining and mining aged solar assets or battery assets or electronic assets so that, that electronics recycler is looking pretty smart right now, right? People are just dropping off TVs and chips. And that was, maybe that was just a state regulation and not just a nicety, but, we're seeing incentives really drive, a lot of that behavior in a positive way, out of necessity. So where that all lands, I would lean on some professionals with more data and more scientific research right now than me, but I'm definitely keeping my fingers on the pulse. Because as an environmentalist, as a fly angler, I'm in the river every weekend, right? So I fish a very rare endemic bass species that grows here, and only in Alabama and Georgia, and they're very sensitive. And the plants that I love along those stream banks, they're very sensitive to changes of pH, lowering water levels, dams, so on and so forth. So I have a very big why for why I'm doing this work at Insights and why I'm interested in how technology and AI can make these assets, these large solar and battery operations more efficient, right? Because these companies, my clients will have, a varying level of assets, but no one owns like one solar field, right? They have a diversified portfolio of, scores, 50, 100, even, thousands of assets. And they're trying to manage the performance across all of those assets. And you don't know if an inverter goes down necessarily, or if an inverter goes down, but what the effect is on your bottom line, to your investors, to the kind of downstream obligations you have to the people that are looking to the performance of that asset. Those are the percentage points that I think are really going to move the renewable energy transition from build, baby, build to, all right, let's build this and let's keep this smart all the way from completion to through the end of life.
I'm just like, Kellan, I'm over here just like you think about the thing we have in front of our computer all day, every day, and the supply chain all the way to, the guy wearing the safety gear, installing one of these assets that Pete's company works with, and everything that goes on just so we can be like, help me plan my day, It's pretty remarkable, I think to step back from like the full narrative dichotomies of AI is amazing, AI is the worst thing that's happening to humanity. Like people did this, like all the way from the software engineers and the, machine learning experts and neural networks to where we are today to like, how do I actually like pump enough water through a server to keep it from exploding?
Right.
And like, this has all come together really fast, you like think about the last 3 years. So there are testaments to people in this whole story.
Yep.
As well.
Maybe that's the overarching, that's the title of the podcast at this rate.
Yeah. The editor we'll pick up on that.
No, it's all AI.
Dude, love having you on the show.
That was great.
We'll do this again sometime. If we find ourselves down in the BHM, we'll be sure to look you up. Pete, thanks for coming on. If you like the show, be sure to like, subscribe, share it with all your friends. Until next week, we'll see you then.
Peace.